All right, we're now recording. So again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. This is the second Boundary Review Committee meeting of the Southwest Burlington Boundary Review. This evening I'm joined by my co-chair, Eleanor McIntosh, as well as my trustee colleagues and my other superintendent senior team colleagues as well, and our parent representatives to discuss the various options that we discussed last week. So this evening, the big purpose is going to be to go back to these three options, review them. We're going to discuss some criteria, see which ones are most important to us, rate these options based on those criteria. And the expectation too, because we did see a lot of communication going back and forth throughout the community, is these are not the first and final three options. There are many more to come, I'm sure of it. So as we discuss it, we'll have more insights and we'll be able to develop more of them, and we'll go from there. So before going any further, I will pass it on to my co-chair to take us into the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which the HDSB is situated is on the ancestral treaty and tidal lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Michizzageek Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Michizzageek territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights, while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land. Thank you.
Thanks, Eleanor. All right, so just as a reminder, we've had our inaugural Boundary Review Steering Committee meeting a little while back between me and my colleagues. Last week, we had our first Boundary Review Committee meeting. We expect to have a few along the way. I will note the one that was planned for next week. We've had some staffing changes in the planning service department, and I expect there to be quite a few options being discussed and developed tonight. So we're probably going to skip next week. So we're going to move on to the February 19th one, give us a little bit more time to develop those options and ruminate on them, gather some more email feedback and things like that. So that interim meeting that we had planned, we're going to skip that one. After we continue to have our meetings and discuss these options, eventually we're going to come forward and we're going to prepare ourselves to present a few of these to the community. Typically, I don't like to go in with more than three because then we're giving too many options, too many choices, and the feedback we're going to gather might not be as I wouldn't say reliable, but as effective or as useful to us because we'll have too many choices. So if we can have two, that's the best. Three is probably the max I'd go. After that public meeting, usually we release a survey prior to, and it's extended and it closes till after the meeting. We'll gather the feedback on those options. We'll see how the community feels about those options in much of the same way that we will be doing ourselves as we rate them. Then afterwards, the committee will come to we hope to come to a consensus on which option or options you'd like to present to the Boundary Review Steering Committee to consider for then recommendation to the Director of Education and the senior team. Once they review and either take it as is or make some further modifications, it then goes to the Board of Trustees, which then make their final determination and decision, which again, they have the discretion to also make changes to that, subject to potentially new information they receive from public delegates that come into the board. And present that evening or anything else that may come to them from the community. So there's a lot of checks and balances along the way, and ultimately when the decision is made, then the community will be notified, and then we start getting into the transition committee. And as we mentioned earlier, there is a very low likelihood that we're going to see anything being implemented for September 26th. By the time we get done with all of the work we have, it's going to be pretty deep into the school year. So we need to be cognizant that making a decision or providing any changes for September come June might be a little bit too jarring. So anyways, we'll play it by ear once we get there. Maybe there are some minor changes we can look at doing, but we'll have to discuss that as a committee and as a group. All right. So agenda for tonight. First, we'll do this at every one of our meetings moving forward. We'll have some housekeeping items. So anything that's come up between our meetings, we'll bring them up. There's questions or things that we had to take back and bring new information. That's where we're going to be handling it. So we'll do that this evening. I'm going to go through options 1 through 3 again. And then afterwards, the the bulk of the meeting tonight is going to be that breakout session I mentioned earlier, at which point you guys are going to review each one of these options and essentially rate them based on the criteria we're looking at, and then have a breakout, a debrief discussion afterwards to see what you found out, what you feel about them, and then kind of explain to the rest of the group. So part one, housekeeping items. So we've introduced two additional Pineland representatives. So maybe we do a quick icebreaker. We'll do at least with our members here that are our para reps. Maybe I'll start with our Pineland, put you on the spot. So if you guys want to raise your hand, say what your name is. So thanks for joining us. Appreciate the time. I'll start with
me.
Yep.
Susanna. So I am parent from Kings Road. My son is in grade 2 at Kings Road, and we are currently living in that little area question, area 1 and 2, just on the other side of Maple Avenue. So my son gets bus to Kings Road.
All right, my name is Dima, and I'm from Pineland, and I have 2 kids there, and one actually in high school here at Central. So it's nice to be in the building because we don't get to see the high school buildings.
I'm Julia, also from Pineland, and my daughter's in grade 2.
I'm Brandy from Buck-Wendham. I've got a daughter in grade 1 and grade 4.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison from Tom Thompson, the English stream. I have a little one going into JK this September at Tom Thompson, and I have a little one getting bigger in grade 4.
I'm Carissa. I'm also from Tom Thompson. I'm the French immersion parent rep, and I have 2 little ones in French immersion at grade 2 and grade 4.
I'm Jessie Hunt. I'm representing Central as in the middle school. I have a daughter there in French immersion, and then I also have a grade 5 son at Tom Thompson.
I'm Dan. I'm here representing Aldershot. I've got a daughter in grade 5. She's about to head in there. The other 2 representatives couldn't make it tonight, so I'm here to fill in.
I'm Lauren from Tecumseh, and I have a son in kindergarten.
I'm Megan from Tecumseh, and I'm co-chair of the parent council. I have a grade 8er and a grade 2er at Tecumseh. My grade 8er will be coming here next year.
I'm Joelle. I'm from Central Public School, and I have 2 boys, SK and grade 2.
Vika, also from Little Central. I also co-chair school council, and I have a little guy, grade 3.
I'm Caitlin. I'm from Clarksdale. I have my middle child is in grade 4 there. I have one in grade 7 at Rolling Meadows and one in grade 1 at CH, which is not this, but going into Clarksdale next year.
I'm Paul from Rolling Meadows. I'm co-chair. I have one little boy in JK first year, and I have another boy in grade 1.
a lot of us have our hands full with those young ones. I've got 2 as well. I got one turning 3 and the other one turning 6. So JK right now. So feel. All right. So tonight we'll talk about some of the emails and some of the protocols around that too, in terms of how we're going to be dealing with it. So we have been getting a huge amount of emails coming in. So we'll explain to you how we're dealing with that and how you can access them and review them.
Yeah, that's us redirecting. Sorry.
No, that's exactly what I said to do, because I don't want you guys getting hit with the brunt of all of this either. So, you know what? I'd be remiss without at least some of you that haven't joined us. I will probably, let's just introduce the crew here in terms of staff. I know we did it the last meeting, but for our Pineland folks, and just acknowledge to the presence of our trustees this evening as well. So my bad on that. I'll start with you, Robbie, if you want to just introduce yourself and then go around the horseshoe.
Robbie Ryden, trustee, Burlington, wards 1 and 2. So that's everything from Guelph Line west to Hamilton and a little up to QE and a little snippet, Tyandiga west of Brant.
Collard, ward 5, that's East Burlington, and I'm the chair of the board.
Me? Oh, hi. Margot Horn, Burlington, Ward 4, which is Gwendon, Tecumseh, County. Yeah, I'm talking about what's down here. Pauline Johnson. No, that's it. Thank you.
I shall be our superintendent. I'm co-chair for the BRC as well as superintendent of education.
Nick Frankovich, one of the superintendents.
Jonathan Shaw, superintendent for the Nelson community.
Bree Choi, I'm part of the planning department.
Mr. Benny, planning department.
I am Romer. I'm representing with Halton Street Transportation.
Figured it'd be good to introduce because a lot of times there's that little Brady Bunch screen that you don't really realize who's who. So thanks, guys. So yeah, let's go right into it. We're also providing some additional information too, just to note, we have completed the walking maps. We have the criteria now that we'll be discussing tonight as well. We have the projections by area as well. So this is just for the status quo. So that was also a request made in terms of how many students are in each one of the zones. So that's all been provided as part of your printout packages. So all the projections that we've done this evening, you'll recall the last meeting, we had them all starting for implementation in 2026. So we bumped that to 2027. There's a couple portable updates that we've done as well as functional capacity with new information that we received as we reviewed the school. So we'll go over that, which kind of adjusted some of the status quo considerations. Every meeting, I would say, we'll circulate the meeting minutes. Last meeting was pretty much me talking the whole time, a lot of questions too, but moving forward, if there's any business items or if there's any questions that were had, we want to capture them in the minutes. Just make sure you have a look at them, make sure they are representative of what the discussion was, because that's also our paper trail that the community can follow along if the video is not their thing, or both. Just make sure you have a look at it. If you're good with it, then just let us know, or if you don't have an issue, we don't hear from you, then we'll just assume that it's good. I know you guys are busy. And then, yeah, this one. So again, just want to thank you guys for joining us late in the game. If you guys do have questions about anything, just let us know. I'm more than happy to walk you through the materials too. And that goes for anybody too. I know last week I went through a lot of it pretty quick. If you need a refresher, by all means, let me know, or Michelle, Lorene, or Mitch. We'd be happy to just kind of walk you through it. All right. So one thing we noticed was, and this is fine because I didn't really mention it, with regards to the presentations, they're eventually going to get posted online. I'm fine with it, so they're going to be public. I just want to remind people, do not share directly the things that are in the folder. So links to the folders and all of that, that's your domain primarily, and we'll get into one of the reasons why too, which is about the emails. So by all means, feel free to direct them to the website once it's up. If it's taking too long, just let us know and we'll deal with it internally and make sure that it's posted a lot faster. So just be cognizant of that. Email wise, and this is one of the reasons too, we're going to share all the emails we receive with you. In our responses, we're probably going to redact the emails themselves and any personal information that relates to a student or child that you don't need to know about. We'll remove that. But that I'll ask, do not share that with the community, because again, that is, albeit there won't be any student information or there won't be any their emails there. Sometimes people just recognize people's way of writing or whatever else. I just don't want to put somebody in a bad spot or just be like, why was this shared, et cetera, et cetera. So do not share the emails. That's for your eyes. We'll summarize the discussions as part of housekeeping or meeting minutes. So if there's like a salient issue that needs to come up, it's kind of, then we'll bring it up as a group, not necessarily through the email itself. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So again, like I said, we had, oh wow, 1 to 19. That went up since I looked at it yesterday. So we had about 19 emails since we last met. So it's we kind of expected this. It is an active community. These are some of the things that we've heard from our community already. Definitely childcare is also always an issue, especially with limitations on Seawalk, especially for our kindergarten and SKs. Getting in is not an easy feat, especially when you're moving schools. So we definitely hear that, and that's one of the main reasons why we moved from the 2027 implementation dates. There are a number of individuals that want to attend these meetings in person. We're saying no. Essentially, the way that we formulated our new AP is everything is video recorded, everything is posted online. Observers aren't supposed to participate anyways, so they would just kind of be sitting in the background. If those are the cases, that you might as well participate through viewing afterwards. We don't need to accommodate all these other people to join us. Again, it's free form, so you guys can mention what was happening in the meetings. And again, I just want everyone to feel comfortable in having free form discussions so that we can tackle the tough ideas and get to the juicy bits, I guess. Again, they want to better understand how it's impacting them, which obviously we'll try to clarify that more and more as we go through the process. Split cohorts remains a big issue, so fixing that again is one of the key principles of what we're trying to achieve as part of this review. So at least it's good indicators to say we're on the right track in what we're doing. And then the sibling impact to make sure that we're cognizant of that if we're moving schools, what we're going to do there. And a lot of this, we're going to be dealing with that implementation. So what are we doing with siblings? What are we doing with legacy exemption? So we might be not talking about it right away, but it is going to come forward once we get an option narrowed down. And then we can look at it very much specific to that particular option. Because depending on the option, you might have more or less flexibility on what you can do there. A lot of support for option one is what we heard a lot of too. That's done. We talked about that. Discussions around how could we just retain FI at Tom Thompson indefinitely. So what the implications of that are. Some concerns around Michelle Zone 4. What were the concerns? Oh, okay. So the consistent theme of option 4 moving. So again, as we develop options, I would expect then that maybe an option comes up where we're not moving zone 4 and it remains at central, and the cohort continuity. So a lot of what we saw is kind of what we expected. And again, as we go through it, and again, something you can tell your community is there's a lot of misconception, a lot with these processes where everyone expects like it's a done deal. We've come up with the options and that's the end of it. It's not the case. You can reassure them of that. We're going to be going through a number of options, and it's important for them to express their opinions because we're not going to know everything. So the more we know and the more we can integrate, the better we can try to adapt as many needs as we want. Reality is nothing's going to be perfect at the end of the day. We're going to do as much as we can and try to appease as many of the concerns as possible, but we can't do it all. So where some options are better, some options might not be as good, and so forth. So that's why the criteria will be important to review. Another additional material that we didn't present in the how to read last go around, we didn't have them yet. We've completed all the walk webs. So just a quick overview of this. Essentially, if you see your school located here and then the colored road network, essentially what that does is it's just taking a network analysis, or essentially what Google does when you put in an address, except it takes every possible route and measures out 1.6 kilometers. So the idea is if any address is along the blue line, give or take at the edge here, you're going to be a walker. Anything beyond that, more likely you're going to be bust. Further refinement we'll do later is there are some exception areas where students that are in the areas that are highlighted are still bust, more so for the fact that they can't cross an arterial road, there's a major barrier, or there's no crossing guard and things like that. So those will get refined as we get through the options, and we'll have option specific ones. But for at least this, if you're wondering, is this a walkable boundary? This gives you a sense of whether that's a yes or a no or a maybe. So for Tom Thompson specifically, we took another look at it capacity wise, because there was a little bit of back and forth going on there, and it actually has decreased by about a classroom's worth. The stage was classified as a music instrumental room, which has a loading based on the ministry. And I can't conceivably think of a class happening on that stage. It's not really enclosed or separated. So that's a no-go. So capacity's gone down. So we've got to be even more careful in terms of what the enrollment looks like. And it just goes to show it is a rather small school. It has a lot of classrooms, but all of those classrooms are undersized and actually resource rooms because it has been converted from an open concept to what it is today. McQuindum, questions came up too last week about, sorry.
Why you think that's intermediate?
That's what it was. And then discussions with the principals on some of the limitations. So one of them is definitely the undersized gym. So it is certainly a K-6 gym based on the vintage of the school and the size of the gym, much like if you look at Glenview is probably a more recent example in South Burlington. They are typically undersized to start. Now it's been like sized to the appropriate GFA or gross floor area of that size school.
If it keeps snowing, you could just build another gym and then you'd be off to the races.
Well, you know, knock on wood, don't say that. Facilities will probably have a heyday if that happened again. But the long and short of it is, it is an undersized gym, and I know that this is a community that's pretty big on their sports, with Nelson's pedigree and all that. So that's one of the reasons why we're concerned around 7 and 8s. And again, you can probably put these things on a cart, but typically in our newer K to 8 schools, you'll have specialty rooms like your design and tech, you'll have your arts, your science, which are part of the rotation for your intermediate. So again, these are an older vintage school. We may not have them, but some of the limitations as to why we didn't really explore converting the Quindam into a 7 and 8, or sorry, K to 8. And we'd also, if we are going down that road, and I know we had one of the other options in Maplehurst to review that for FI specifically. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, we got to talk potentially to the ministry's regional manager on that just to make sure everything's good. Okay. So other considerations. So again, it's not that it's off the table, but these are some of the things you might come across if we're proposing it to that specific community. All right, so functional building capacity. So this is one that we further refined to when we did our not our projections, but our scenarios. Like we talked about in the last meeting, a lot of the schools that we're dealing with, other than Tecumseh and Rolling Meadows, you're primarily K to 6s. And why that matters is typically when you have a typical K to 8 school, your classes are usually loaded for FDK 26-1. Then you get into the nuance here where all your regular classrooms, in terms of a ministry rating, it's all 23-1. However, when we staff them, your primary classes, we need to stick to a 20-1 loading for the vast majority of all classes in the board. So that means you're losing almost 3 spaces per classroom. And then you can usually load up your 7 and 8s and your 4 to 5 and 6s. Because you're K to 6 schools for the most part, you don't have that extra capacity to balance it out. So a lot of times you'll find your school might have a portable on it, like Central's a good example. But technically, based on your OTG, you're not really full. It's just the way that we have to staff it based on ministry loading requirements. Our classes are filling up a lot faster, and it's a lot more difficult to section these schools. So that's some of the challenges we're having, where you might have a school that we're right under the line and it has a very low portable capacity, and we're pretty much full in terms of number of classrooms being utilized. Because you're never going to get the perfect 20-1 either. Like a lot of times you might have classes that are 18, 19, so that eats away at your capacity. So anyways, all that to say, Michelle updated all the options, and moving forward we'll do the same, so that we're doing kind of a mini staffing scenario as to what that will look like with the enrollment that's in place. Because we project everything by grade, so we have a good sense of what that could look like when we staff it. That's just a little bit more of an example here. So here, what you look at is if you got 132 kids, and this is the process how we do it and translates it into those tables that we've provided you with. If you got 132 kindergartens, we divide that by 26-1. You round it up, and that gives you a sense of how many classes you'll need. Sometimes you got some flexibility to go a little higher too for FDK. So sometimes we'll even look at 29-1. This is the one that's a lot more of a difficult cap to deal with. 90% of the board's 1 to 3 classes need to be 20-1, and your 23-1's the last 10%. A lot of times we use that up at the FI level because we don't have enough teachers most of the time, or it's harder to staff on that side. So we try to load those up, and there's also attrition. So we try to bring those up to the 23. So over time, you drop down. So that's another challenge there. And then your 4 to 6s, you got a little bit more flexibility, and we use these averages to calculate it.
Just a quick question of clarification on these data tables where it says building capacity. That is the ministry building capacity.
That's exactly right. So when we look at, yeah, that's exactly it. And then when we do our portable planning and all that, we actually look at the classroom by classroom type and go from there. But this one's more of just assuming
it really matters to us is the ministry building capacity.
It's a good indicator. So what I'm saying is if you see 90%, you might be full based on the fact that you're K to 6. Or even like you might question what's going on at Tom Thompson because it's got such a low capacity. because a lot of those rooms are rated 12-1 because they're smaller at GFA. We're still packing the kids in because it's just slightly below it, so it's like 650, 600 square feet. But yeah, they're more of an indicator. All right, so criteria. So here we've got 6 criteria that make up our administrative procedure at the board. These are the ones that we've typically looked at throughout all the boundary review processes. And then we have the 7th, which is other. I'm gonna get to that one in a second. So the first one's the geographic areas and barriers. So that one's trying to create these zone or those catchment areas that, if you look on a map, it makes sense. They're contiguous, they're together. There's a neighborhood fabric to them. To the best of your ability, if you can walk or bike to school, there is that option there. And we're trying to make sure that we're creating these combinations that make the most sense. Now, can we always achieve this? No, there are sometimes there's areas that are completely encased by highways and whatever else, and you can't do much about it. But where we can, let's try to make sure that there's some continuity there. Balance of overall enrollment. I'd say that's one of the big ones as part of this review, is that we certainly have a lot of schools that have a lot of surplus space, and then schools that are feeling a lot of pressures, especially on their common areas, and have a number of portables. Their sites are being encumbered. So there's an opportunity to rebalance things over the long term to make sure everybody's got a good enrollment and a healthy enrollment too, that supports programs and whether it's academic or before and after schools. Which ties into the viability program. We want to make sure that whatever programs are at the school, it's large enough so there's flexibility in the classroom sizes, as well as the program having a sustainable enough population to offer the best programming possible. Stable long-term boundaries is another one. I don't want to be doing this again. We do have some repeat offenders coming back, but that's from another review in another area, so I don't feel bad about it. Thank you again for joining. If I can not see you for 5 years, I'll miss you, but I'll be happy. And that's the goal. Is we know that this is disruptive. We know this isn't the best thing that a child wants to hear, is that we're moving schools. So where we can limit the number of times we're coming back, all the better. We don't want to be doing this recurring. So we want to make sure the options we have take into account, have enough flexibility for changes in time, and that, you know, we're balancing things out as much as possible, which again ties into the student experience too. They're all kind of tying into one another, but they're kind of their own separate little pots too. We want to make sure that we're reducing moves. We want to make sure that we're reducing cohort shifts. So grade 8s would be great if all the grade 8s were graduating, going to the same high school, or at least if they're in the same program. We want to make sure that as they're transitioning in, they have the opportunities that they need. And again, we're trying to mitigate any impacts that they have on the students. And proximity to school, again, ties in a little bit with geographic areas, but we want to try to have boundaries which make the most sense and are as close to the school as possible. So even if they're not being transported, as they get older, there's always the option to bike or walk to school if they are close, or at least there's a little bit more of that neighborhood continuity too, or contiguousness. So again, all of these are things that we try to incorporate in the development of our options. Is any option going to meet all of them perfectly? No. How we prioritize them is what's going to be important, which we're going to do next. And we just need to weigh it in such a way where we can say, well, this option meets the majority of these, or at least what the community feels is most important to them. And that's how we want to express that to the community when we present these, is how do you feel, are we meeting your objectives as a group? Oh yeah, I said I was going to talk about other. So other is what you may feel is particularly important for your community. Every geography has different priorities, different outlooks, different histories. So that's one to say, if particular interests don't necessarily fit into these categories, maybe we throw in another one, and that's something we can discuss too. Any questions on that? Cool. All right, Mentimeters. This is a tool we use as part of these review processes, just to keep things kind of flowing nicely. And it gives everyone an opportunity to give their voice. So kind of contrary to what we usually tell our students and our kids at school, I need you all to take out your devices. And you got two, well, usually the easiest way, or one's got a computer set up. Take a device, pick up the QR code, we'll load up a questionnaire, and that way we can take kind of a survey and some information from you immediately. I'll ask that our staff and our trustees do not participate, because I just want to have our parent reps. Oh, I'll put this away aside. All right, so first question, which you're way ahead of me already. Does your child walk to school, takes the bus, or is driven? That's okay. You do both.
Can you click both? Can you click more than one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Are you like one at each? You're at 3 schools, eh?
Yeah.
Mornings.
I have lots of opinions about proximity to school.
Well, that's why we're here. All right. And this is what I mean, right? So I asked one question and everybody just answered and we have a good cross section. Also, just so you know, we are also posting this as part of the minutes. So then individuals can see what's going on. So, yeah, so a good distribution. I'm glad to see that the walk to school is pretty high and the bus to school. Driven. Just kidding. Good to know though.
Not kidding.
Huh?
Not kidding.
Kidding, not kidding.
Okay.
Where's that next button? I wouldn't mind asking why the driven piece. Before and after doesn't count.
I'll answer that. We live like 0.4 kilometers within that 1.6. Is 1.6 the bus?
1 point beyond 1.6.
Yeah, so we are like 1.56 or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we walk past the bus stop to get to school. So when the weather's not ideal, we don't bike or walk. I drive.
I can expect that, the 1.6. And you, sorry, I'm not going to remember all your kids' age, but you were in kindergarten for?
Grade 3 at Central.
Grade 3 at Central. Okay. Yeah. At that age, I can see that.
Yeah.
So, I deal with a lot of school travel planning too at times. So it's been a challenge lately. Oh, you guys are ahead of me already. All right. So in one word, what's your biggest concern regarding the boundary change? So the way that this one works is as we see very common words come up, they're going to start blowing up as being the ones that are more important. Smaller words are probably the ones that don't come up as much amongst the group. So. Great song by David Bowie. But it's going to happen. We're going to have some changes. We're kind of at a peak here, but I understand why. I can never see that one before, actually, in all the reviews I've done. So, anybody feel comfortable in explaining what the fear is with the change?
Say fear.
Concern. Sorry, maybe not fear. Concern.
I guess I was just thinking about, because I was trying to find one word, so just thinking about the change for the students, really. Just, and currently I'm not, sort of on the chopping block of having to move at this time, but just thinking about if we had to move and what that would mean for our kids, and just thinking about that for all the other kids and how that would, when they've been at a school for 3, 4, 5 years and build those relationships and in that community, and having that change, I think just is tough as a parent.
Oh, understood. Well, thank you for that. Anyone else on that one? Fair enough. Middle school, definitely a big one. So Burlington Central kind of moving from the 6 to 7. I know that's a big change. I know it was with my parents when they first introduced the 7 to 12 a couple decades ago. Can't believe I'm saying that. Enrollment at the school, student experience, so balance. Okay. And then the next big one we have is the culture side of things. So we're talking about like school community, school culture, kind of, okay. It's definitely a big one. And I'll say that what I'm really happy to see in all the reviews that I've done is seldom do I see a school that doesn't have a really distinct and active culture. So there's always, then that's where the importance comes in with, thankfully I'm out of that part for your benefit, but we have our SOs that deal with the transition committee, which really ensures that there's a very welcoming atmosphere that comes in after the fact, so that there's events that are planned, school administrators speak to the future students and make it as much of a warm welcome and to introduce them to the culture of their new school. So that is definitely an important part at the end of this process once a new option is, and a lot of time is spent in doing that transitioning. Am I missing anything in terms of on the SO side of things of kind of like the importance we place on? All right, good.
I think there's a lot of, we've heard from our parent community, it's not necessarily the transition into a school, it is losing our French immersion from Tom Thompson. So it's, you know, a lot of our school council is made up of French immersion parents, right? It provides a really nice balance to our school community. And so for me, when I said culture, it's less about my kids that would be the ones that are moving, and it's more about what that does to the Tom Thompson culture, because we have such a beautiful community there.
I can definitely see that, especially when a program's been there for I know of a very long time.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's what people were saying at our school council meeting this week. It's been there for 33 years, and it's part of the culture of the school is the French immersion and the English kind of support each other. So the worry of the parents of if you remove all of the French immersion, what will the culture be like? And I think that's parents who are maybe also thinking, do I go to French immersion or do I stay at Tom Thompson? And how do I'm going to lose no matter, maybe I'll lose no matter what. So I think that was some of the concerns raised this week.
It's gonna be a tough one to deal with, I'll say.
Yes, it will.
It's a big challenge, like a lot of things to balance on that one. So thanks for your explanation on that one. All right, so this is the biggie here. Right, so usually what we do is I want to preface it with this, kind of like the rating culture of new, and this is for everybody. This is worldwide. A lot of them. Through all the reviews I've done, I've always run into this issue. And I'm happy to not see it here, which is fantastic. When we rate options or we rate criteria, usually we use a 1 to 5 scale. So 1 being very dissatisfied or strongly disagree or not effective at all is usually the words we use. The middle point is kind of, again, the midpoint. And then the 5 is very effective, very much agree, et cetera, et cetera. I'll say this is I'm hopeful, unless I've really given you a stinker of an option. Most options, I don't expect to see a 1 or a 1.2 or 1.4. You can not like an option, but we can also look at it as being like, okay, it's definitely not a 1 out of 5. It's probably a 3 out of 5. I'm using my PTSD from like Amazon reviews and things like that. So again, I just want to be cognizant of that, is actually critically look at it. Even if you don't like the option, what is the redeeming factor of that? Because that could maybe take that option to a better iteration of itself by improving some of the things that you don't like about it. So we don't want to accidentally dismiss an option that almost had it just because we gave it a really poor rating. So be critical in that. And again, like the first and last time I say it, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But just think of it that way too, is if there's some way to make it better, look at that too. So don't dismiss it entirely just because it doesn't meet all your criteria. All right, so based on this, okay, this is good to see. So we're really prioritizing the proximity to school. So again, that big neighborhood model. We want our stable long-term boundaries. Agree with you on that one. Student experience is going to be the big one. So happy to see that there. Viability program. So we got to make sure that both our English track and our French immersion, wherever it lands, whatever else program, we want to have a good sustainable enrollment. Rule of thumbs, usually if you can have 2 classes of each grades, that's ideal. So you can have some flexibility between grades and grades. And if there's any, accommodations that need to be made for students, you can. Whereas if you have too much of a small school, that can present some issues too. Balancing overall enrollment, so that's good too. Geographic areas and boundaries. So that kind of ties to this one, but this one we can acknowledge maybe less of importance if you have to be on a bus from what I'm seeing here. Transportation requirements, kind of, fiscal sustainability. That kind of ties into just being efficient, and portables so important. So this ties in more with balancing enrollment as well. So interesting to see that portables aren't as interesting. So we're not as concerned about having too many portables on site. Okay. Good to know. All right. Additional criteria. Redistribution of middle school. Thank you.
From the long-term projections for Aldershot School, there's gonna be a crunch for spacing at Aldershot School and then within this timeline. I think if we're gonna be looking at this to make it a long-term viable solution, we should think about what's gonna happen when that happens, how that domino affects all these other decisions that we're making now.
For the Aldershot, yeah. I think Aldershot, for the most part, that's a great point to bring up. There is going to be a slight decline in the secondary, so there will be the option potentially to rebalance the internal OTGs of that, or sorry, the internal underground capacities. But that's not to say there's no issues coming down the pipe. You're right, there is more development coming, which will increase the enrollment.
They're building 3 more towers. They're going to build above the highway. Like there's all those things that are coming in that area. So if the long term has to be considered.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's not a lot we're doing, like most of the changes that affect Aldershot's east of the QE, but something to keep in mind. Also with Burlington Central Middle School too, that's another one we're having to look at. But
I want to do this again in 5 years.
Oh, tell me about it. I agree. All right, so this one could I argue that this is more along the lines of balancing enrollment?
Yep, it's part of it.
Okay, so but with an eye to that, to make sure that our middle schools are.
Because I think this similar could be true in Central. In your option 3, if you get rid of the FI here, does it stay as a sustainable school? With just the English side, you'd have a pretty small enrollment for 7 and 8s just in English here. My wife's one of the teachers here. She wanted me to point out that if you did that, there'd only be 8 teachers left in the grade 7 and 8s English at Aldershot or at Central.
At Central.
I would second that, but also add to the attractiveness of the French immersion program, especially within this community, and having it centralized like that. The alternative option being Nelson, which is quite far. I know now as a parent of a grade 8 student, I think I mentioned this before, kids are deciding where they're going. They're going Nelson or if they're going Central. And Nelson currently also has the French program. But one of the strengths that I see from Central is the languages piece, right? They have the ESL here as well, and they have the IB program. And to me, it's a very natural fit for the school to have French immersion.
No, that's absolutely fair.
And I just put this because while we're talking about this and we have all these boundaries being discussed, what are the ramifications if we, from what we're doing, one more step? Hey, like, could this be something that is discussed? I know not all the schools could hold 7 and 8s, but a lot of the ones we're talking about could hold grade 7 and 8s. Or some of them could. You could, as you're centralizing the FIs, could centralize right up the 7 and 8s as well, depending on the size.
Absolutely, and you're thinking like more on the Burlington. So we're getting to the option side of things and developing that. So like, don't forget these conversations. But as it relates to criteria specifically, because I want to get into the meat and potatoes of tonight.
Yep.
Are we comfortable with the 6 that we currently have? Not to say you can't add some later, but this is a layer that we have to look at in terms of balancing of enrollment with middle schools too.
2 more added.
Okay, keeping cohorts together, that would definitely be student experience. So that's a big piece of student experience is the cohorts. So that's a sub layer. I wouldn't say you want to add another one on that one. If you guys are in agreement. If you guys don't agree with me, you tell me right now.
That's mine. I just know some of the options would cause French kids to go to one school and English to another. My comment was all go to the same school because of de-streaming in high school. They need those people like.
I see what you mean. Okay, so the one option where we had split to come say with the 6-8. Okay, that makes sense. And high school boundaries. Yeah, most definitely. That's what the split cohorts is. Are we saying we want to adjust high school boundaries as part of this review, because I think it might be out of scope, but it's not to say we can't.
It might just be an information piece of along with these boundary maps. It would be really nice to know what high schools they'll end up streaming into. That's something
Yeah, taking it into consideration would be, be very key.
And that's also in the interest of that splitting of a cohort, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that if we are going to look at high school boundaries, we would also need to invite the participating high schools to be part of this review. So that would be a decision that needs to be made like tonight in order to give them the ramp, in order to fit into the group. Typically, we don't do a mixed high school, elementary school model specifically because of that. It's very complicated.
What I'd say we'd have to do, and doesn't mean we can't do it, just means we probably have to settle on this kind of agreement and structure our final approvals on the elementary on potentially having some considerations on the secondary panel and having to go through a different process for that. So it might be a pathway 2 or pathway 1, depending if we're moving existing kids or is it something that's more of a transition. What we're trying to do as part of this review, however, is making sure that we're reducing the split cohorts of grade 8 because we acknowledge there are a lot of them right now in this review. So we want to make sure that we're eliminating them as much as possible, and where we can't, I think then the next question is, okay, then is it more of a matter of adjusting the secondary boundary at a later date and making that rectification later? Because again, that one, you can just phase that in as opposed to just moving existing kids, and then you can transition it in year over year as opposed to just doing it right away. So it's something to consider.
Is it possible to include that information in the option packages without it being a consideration for?
So like flagging which secondary school the zones are currently. Michelle, can we take that back and figure out a good visual way we can maybe integrate that with the maps or have a key map afterwards? We can also provide you with just the secondary boundary maps as well. So we have that available too, but it'd be good if we can have something that's kind of like a one-stop shop. Trouble is usually we would overlay it, but now we have the 7 and 8s and then we have another layer. So it's the complicated one.
Even just knowing the feeder schools, right? Like this school, here's the feeder schools into that high school.
Some of them are like,
yeah, I know.
So, but you're on the right track. That's what we'll move to do. So consensus wise, are we good with the 6 criteria, but knowing that these are subcategories of those 6 criteria? So let's make sure we have these clearly identified when we have another look at those. All right, now that's, and this is the kind of information we know. We need to know the community specific stuff. So when we develop future options, we got that in mind. Yeah, we can skip this one. All right, so generally, you don't have to answer this. Well, you can if you want, or you can answer it later. So I think we just kind of already answered that. We're generally okay with the criteria as they are, and we'll add those other sub layers, and we'll look to incorporate more of our secondary school boundaries. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Okay, so back to the presentation. So here's a question for you. Do you need me to go through the options again, or are you comfortable just jumping right into it? I hear that seemed more like a dive. Totally down for it. Seemed like I'll give that a 10 out of 10. Are we good with diving into it? You can, and again, we'll be
just a very quick wrap up of each.
Some people want to put.
Yeah, they correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually watched the.
Oh, you did. That was a good
Yeah.
recording.
Good
Oh,
recording. Yeah.
sorry. So now you guys have to like
We
watch
sped
me.
it up a little bit.
That's too much of my voice over a week. That's like I apologize. You guys are on it. Okay. So consensus. Let's jump up. Sorry, go through them real quick.
Well, if anyone else, I'd like to go through it very quickly, but if everyone else is okay, we can just move.
I'll try. You guys tell me. I can sit down with you too.
No, that's okay.
I'm good, whatever you need. Maybe I'll just give you the theme real quick. So option 1, Michelle, please correct me if I'm wrong, because if I go fast, I'm probably going to mess this up. Option one, essentially, we're moving south central area, zones 3 and 4 from central to lakeshore. 1 is coming from King to lakeshore, and 2 is going from King to central. Tom Thompson 10, we're sending up to Clark's. Zone 11, we're sending up to Rolling Meadows for the English program. And I don't think we made any changes to the Tecumseh boundary. So Tom Thompson losing a little bit of the English track. FI, we're directing everyone to central, lining up boundaries as best we can. And zone 11 and 10 that are north, those ones there, we're sending to Rolling Meadows and Clarksdale to keep them together. These ones we would have to look at. I think this is what we mentioned earlier in terms of the high school. Those would be currently going to Burlington Central. So we'd have to look at MMR, right, on this one? Yeah. Which would be a future change to Amy's point, probably a pathway too as we transition it in. Central, we generally have good enrollment. Lakeshore, we're above capacity slightly. If you want me to slow down, just let me know. Tom Thompson, we hit the capacity line there with a few portables. So again, given the arrangement, it definitely drops down the size of a school, which was also a point that was brought up. Tecumseh generally drops from its current enrollment by removing zone 10. Burlington Central, pretty sustainable enrollment for 7/8. Kings Road dropped from the removal of zones 1 and 2. Maplehurst, minor drop because there's not a lot of kids in zone 1 and 2 that are taking FI, and that's the recipient school, so not a huge impact there. Clarksdale increase, Rolling Meadows increased to capacity, which is good. McQuendam, Aldershot Elementary, and Pinedale stayed the same. Pineland, sorry, Pinedale, something else. That's the same for all 3 options, but that's why you're here tonight. Option 2, this one's generally the same, I'd say, except zones 3 stays at central, 1 and 2 go to central, 4 goes to lakeshore, 10 moves from Tom Thompson, 11 moves from Tecumseh, same as option 1. In this case here, now we're going FI at Tecumseh, but FI is only going K to 6. 7 and 8 will remain at Burlington Central, so we can keep that sustainable cohort there. But then we run into the other criteria that was brought up of not keeping cohorts together with de-streaming. All right. Tecumseh remains a K to 8 regardless for the English track program as it is now. Central, good enrollment, still below, remains English track. Lakeshore, not over capacity, but close to. Tom Thompson, same as option 1. Tecumseh, a little bit more of an increase now that we're introducing FI, but we're also taking away from the English track program. So that balances things out. Burlington Central Elementary is healthy. Kings Road, same thing. Maplehurst, same thing as option 1. Clarksdale and Rolling Meadows, same thing as option 1. Status quo for McQuendam, Aldershot Elementary, and Pineland, option 3. Was option 2 with Maplehurst going to 7/8, or was that option 3?
Option 3 has Maplehurst by 7/8.
Thank you. Got going too fast. Zone 3 going from, zone 4 going from central to lakeshore, 1 and 2 moving from Kings Road like we had before. 10 and 11, same song and dance as we did for 1 and 2. FI stays at Tecumseh, but then the Aldershot zone, Maplehurst is taking on the 7 and 8. So that's that's the main difference from option 2.
And Tecumseh's a 2 to 8 FI school.
2 to 8 FI school. So that's the transition we made. So by giving Maplehurst these 7 and 8s, we're then giving the full grade cohort at Tecumseh. So that's kind of the offshoot balance to get back to the other piece, which we acknowledge is kind of an awkward arrangement. And that one, Tecumseh goes a little bit higher up in the enrollment side of things. Central, we're taking a little bit of a hit, right, by not having 7 and 8s. So that'll transition out over time. So I think that was the point that was brought up earlier. Kings Road, Maplehurst goes up. Sorry, Kings Road the same. Maplehurst goes up a little bit more. We're adding 2 classes essentially. So that's about, I'd say, what were we at, like 40 kids, Michelle? 30, 40 kids with the 7 and 8s around there. Aldershot Elementary. What drove the increase on Aldershot on this one? Sorry, Michelle, I forget.
7. No,
There's no, it's still the same, right? Yeah, because the feeder schools still go to Burlington Central Secondary for 9 to 12. Clarksdale, Rolling Meadows the same. All right, I'm gonna stop talking now. So after I say this, of course, I'm so sorry. So the big thing about this is, and how we're gonna shake it out. You'll notice on the easels, each table has an option. So what we'll do is we'll each one of you will tackle that option. We'll give you guys like 10 minutes. If you see the conversation starting to die out a little bit, we'll just rotate you guys, and then you guys can just kind of pick up and go to the next options. Or you can stay in place. It's all the same to me. I'm noticing you got a lot of baggage to carry. So if you want, I can just bring the, you know what, why don't we just move the maps for you? 10-minute mark. That's gonna be a lot easier. So review that. You've got Post-its, you've got markers there too. Write down what you're thinking on the options, your ideas, slap it on the phone cord that you have over here. Huh? Oh. We were, slideshow. We did want to put you guys in specific groups, so. Yeah, so you know what? Here's your groups. And the reason we're doing this is, I know we have a buddy system right now, but we're going to separate you. And that way you guys can bring your different perspectives to the different groups. I didn't want to tell you at the beginning of the meeting because you'd run off, so now I'll break you guys all up. So set yourselves up. I'm going to say option 1 is going to be group A. So, all right. So thanks again, everyone, for doing your review of the 3 options. For those of you reviewing the video after the fact, the groups came together, reviewed all 3 options, and took 10 to 15-minute intervals to review each. Now we're going to debrief as groups on the discussions that were had. So who wants to volunteer to go first? All right, we'll say group A.
We didn't necessarily look at these questions, but we did pros and cons, so maybe we'll sort of like, so I guess we'll just sort of go through them. So our preferred option was option 1. We really appreciated and liked the idea of a meaningful French immersion campus.
Yeah, I don't want.
Do you want us to
Maybe talk a little bit louder. There you go.
Is it, are we good?
I think.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, it looks like it's the video recording. You guys go right ahead.
Oh,
They
okay.
can hear
So
you.
we like the idea of option 1. We appreciated it's a French immersion campus where essentially you're attending, you know, from 2 to 12.
It keeps the going to a community school, maintains its walkability, and respects its natural geographic boundaries. As a parent of a middle schooler, French immersion student here at Central, I also appreciated having 2 schools, in my case, Tom Thompson and Maplehurst, come together in grade 7. French immersion can be a very static group of kids. It doesn't change much. So getting some fresh faces coming together is a really positive experience for kids as they enter into those middle school years.
So unfortunately we have cons in each option, but the biggest were just, you know, how do we lessen the impact on the kids that are affected in it right now? So zones 1, 3, and 4 would be moved, and they just essentially wouldn't graduate. The older children would not be able to graduate with their friends. So if they're entering 4 or 5 or 6. Also zone 4, based on these walkability maps that you've given to us, zone 4, you're essentially moving that zone from a walkable school to a non-walkable school. And I think that's sort of a big I think you got a lot of emails on that. We also have zone 11 and 10 based on every option. The feel is that they should be going to central in terms of proximity opposed to, sorry, what is it?
Rolling Meadows.
Instead of Rolling Meadows.
Spring Park, Parkstep.
And then the possible negative effect, social economical diversity of Kings Road if you're moving the zone
1 and 2.
Yeah, it's on, if you're moving zone 1, is it zone 1?
3.
If you're taking them out of Kings Road and moving them to Central. And then what was the high school split? Oh, we wrote that one or no?
Yeah, high school split from Central and MMR.
Exactly, yeah. So for that one, just as clarity, as we pointed out, so we kind of roughly threw them on there. We'll find a better way next time. If that's what we were talking about, we'll probably have to explore another boundary review to adjust that and phase it in as part of that. So we probably have some time, because typically we like to see exempt grade 8s anyways. So we have a year grace period so that we can address that split cohort issue.
Yeah, because I think that was a con in each of ours, was that zone 11 and 10 are zoned for Central High School, but then you're going to send them to pretty much grade 8 somewhere else, and then all their friends are going to go to MMR, and then they're coming back down to a whole new set of people that they haven't ever interacted with. So keeping them with the same people that they're going to go to high school with would be a smart move. But if you're going to rezone that to be MMR, then I guess if that will phase in, it won't take into effect too much. But right now, as of today, all those kids are going to Central. So why not let them go to Central?
So for
our main con.
For option 2, we really like the correction of the. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We like the correction of 1 and 2. How they will be going to Central, and we just like physically how the boundaries look. How 1, 2, and 3 are all going to Central. It's continuous.
Yeah, it's one big solid chunk.
Yeah,
going to the same
school
school
from K to 12. We didn't have a lot of pros, honestly, for option 2 or 3. Our cons is that it's a lot of busing, a lot of not walkable kids. It's
for the
F5 program,
yeah.
sorry. And essentially it's not very central. It's on the eastern side of the border, and you're moving all the kids to that end of the boundary.
We're wondering if it might negatively affect the French immersion numbers for the community. They're being taken out of their direct community.
Yes, they would just choose not to. Is this extra transition? What was that?
One of them,
One of them's
kids
like
would
2
go
to
just
6.
to kids, yeah, to 6, and then they have to move again.
And then one was 2 to 8.
Yeah.
So then you've got that extra move in there for no reason.
And then we're dealing with the same thing in terms of zone 4, where you're moving walkable kids that could walk to Central. You're moving into Lakeshore, where on the maps, it's not walkable anymore. And that 3, it's similar. We really like the correction of the 1, 2, 3, and then they're all going continuously to K to 12 at Central. Cons, it takes F1 kids out of their community. Increase in buses. And the same, it might negatively affect the French immersion numbers just based on location.
So I think I got some tweaks that we can look at. So just a few comments on some of the observations that you made. So thanks for all of that. One point of clarity on the K to 6 to come save or option 2 with FI. The intent there was to try to reduce a move. So you're going to 6, and afterwards, what we were trying to avoid is if we had it go all the way to 8 without addressing Maplehurst, then you're going to have to go to go to Central, and then you'd have to bump back. There's not enough of a cohort from the Maplehurst area to go to Central, or they have to go all the way there. So what we thought is, if you stop it at 6, you're going to Burlington Central for 7 and 8s anyways, as it is now with the Tecumseh, as opposed to bringing you all the way to 7 and 8s, where then you'd have a split cohort with the kids in Maplehurst. And thinking that Maplehurst kids that are in FI, they're not going to want to go all the way east to your observation for Tecumseh. So that's why I made that split, and then option 3 we made. So, but no, good point there. And then 10, 11, I hear what you're saying with Central. The problem we have is that the amount of students that are in 10, 11, we would be able to fit them all into Central.
That's what we figured. Yeah.
There's a lot of kids.
Yeah, unless we, yeah, and I think even if the Central didn't get the F5 program, we still run into the same issue. So, but no, thanks for all those comments. And any other options you'd like to see other than the kind of those like switches or like, I think from what I got there is you want to see 4 come back to Central and see what kind of adjustments we can make to make it work.
So for me, I'm co-chair of council. I'm very involved in the community. I know a lot of the families that live in that, well, in general in the school, but that live in that 4 that have come to me and have said, you know, I can stand on my front yard and see Central. It's just very confusing to them that a walkable school is now no longer, you know, their new school will no longer be walkable. That confusion for them is just something that they need clarification, and that's number 4. That's the zone 4.
Thank you. Mitch, was that just because I'm about to get kicked out again, or?
I heard the beep.
Oh, okay. Google keeps wanting to kick me out because I'm the only one here. All right, so thank you for that. Moving on to the next group.
We had a lot of similar points. I would say option 1 was sort of our made the most sense when we looked at all of the criteria that we were going to be. One of the big things we said too was moving FI from Thompson to Central still creates that walkable environment regardless of where you are. And one of the things that also kind of, when you have, as a parent who has kids in FI, we are always resource constrained. So the more resources you can pull on in a single location, the better the program will be. So trying to capitalize on that is a big thing. Like, you know, you can't get substitute teachers that teach FI. So if you've got more available resources in the school to help, that would be positive. And you maintain that consistent culture for all the students as well. You're not jumping schools multiple times. What else to say? Our kind of negative with all of them is the busing demand, specifically on 10 and 11 and Clarksdale and Rolling Meadows, and just have the capacity and the space for the buses physically at the schools coming in. So both Paul and I are at those schools and know how crazy it is with the number of buses that get there and just how, but there's not really another option, but it's just something for the planning department.
It's a dead end Rolling Meadows, so there's no bus turnaround. So they all have to go through the schoolyard.
Yeah.
And it becomes treacherous. Some mornings it becomes very treacherous.
Yeah. For option 2, when we looked at the numbers for zone 4, so we don't have anybody in zone 4 here, but when we looked at the numbers, you could understand why they were moved to Lakeshore. It's like 30 students over the course of, so it doesn't really have a huge impact to, from a numbers perspective, to Lakeshore, but it creates capacity at Central where it's needed if we move the FI program completely there. Lots of split cohorts with option 2, which none of us really enjoy. The 2 to 6 at Tom Thompson for French, and then the K to 8 there. That was the biggest downside to option 2, and then option 3. It is nice that the cohorts stay together. You don't have the split cohort as much as you do with option 2, but we're really concerned about capacity at Tecumseh and as being affordable to come on, and just the negative impacts that's going to have long-term for the student population, green space, safety, extra things that comes with affordable. So that's kind of our biggest downside to option 3.
One thing we did look at, we looked at the numbers of students that would have to be affected. Some of them are very low, and to not make a change because of one reason, when the numbers are very low, we have to look at the overall, not today. We have to look at what's going to be in 5 to 10 years, not just today. That's sometimes we get lost. We're worried about today. This is a long-term program. We have to be ahead of it and not behind it. We're doing this in 5 years, as you said, and it won't work that way. So that's what was important. We looked at the numbers on this side here.
Option 1 to that was the one where zone one wasn't to central, we thought put them at central. Because I think again, it's 20 or 30 students.
Yeah,
It wasn't a
30 students.
Sorry, is there a way, I know I asked it in the last week's meeting, is there a way of finding out what those numbers are? Like,
Yeah, the back of
in
your
zone
package.
one, just finding out, oh, it's,
Right
is
at the
that
very
number
back,
in
right at
there?
the very back.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's like it's 10, like it has very.
that's why I thought it's very few that are actually getting bused. I'm like, there's so many numbers.
Oh, I know,
Some
it's a lot,
I'm like,
guys.
I can't.
Up all the way. There you go.
But where we going about?
I guess I didn't flip all the way to this.
Well, that's the thing, guys, like you said, so now that you got the printed materials, got it all in front, like, there's still time, just to clarify, so I just want to finish, but there's still time, so like, over the course, I think we set a deadline, Michelle will look forward to things in the presentation, but you guys can still throw some options, doesn't have to be tonight. We do want to cut back more options, so use that as kind of your tool to say, okay, well, what does it look like adding in the meeting?
That we did, I also would love to see an option where Maplehurst French immersion goes to Rolling Meadows or 7, as opposed to having that stay or wherever they were going to go.
They go to Burlington Central.
They're at
They
central.
go to Central right
Yeah,
now, yeah.
Central.
Yeah.
Right now, all of,
Because they all go to Central for high school. Right?
they all go to Central. So we made that change a couple of years ago where the Aldershot, I think, had 7 and 8s, but it was a very small F5 program. Like we weren't able to really provide the resources needed. So we phased it in so that Burlington Central would take on all the 7 and 8s. So that's the transition. But like when you mentioned it to me, like north of QE, you're looking at Tyne-Dagan and seeing like, can you?
Because north of the golf course goes to Clarksdale for French immersion, but south of the golf course goes to Maple. For night, Tyne-Dagan split.
It's a 2, yeah. So to me, it was like, would you do all of Maplehurst to
Yeah. To MM.
MM? And I think that's the question.
It was just an idea.
Oh, it's an interesting one though, because we hadn't thought of that, because it is pretty contiguous and it's a lot of these
There's
areas
a kind
too,
of a
like,
natural boundary when you add 10 and 11 there, right? Of, I guess the CNL or CNL.
yes. The CN or that's go with it.
Whatever the railroad trains are.
Trial.
Yeah.
The trains. And just to clarify too, 10, 11, I think, Romer, correct me if I'm wrong, I think these are fully transported regardless. So no matter where you're going, you're on a bus. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm curious about that option. So you're back. All right, last table. Not least.
There's a lot of repeating. So I'll start where we started. So option 3, Tecumseh status quo below utilization. Will they need portables? We talked a little bit about, so these are the negatives for option 3. Any sort of special resources that are being required there? Will we have that capacity? Maplehurst, there's only 3 classes. With option 3, there ends up being only 3 classes in 7 and 8. So really small group, and will they have the resources? On that same track, this option has loss of teachers for 7 and 8 in FI for Central. We reduce walkability. FI student class has to cross the major road. So it's all bused. So that's students that are currently at TT have to be bused over. We're removing socioeconomical balance. So needed support at both Tecumseh and Tom Thompson. Are we removing that in that? Some positives is that the FI students all stay together for 2 to 8. Is that? Sorry, 11 to Central was one of our ideas, that section 11 going down to Central instead of going up to Rolling Meadows. For option 2, a couple of negatives there, a couple of things that we didn't love. French I and English cohort has that split. There are different high schools that boundary shift again. Part of 4 isn't walkable, like you guys mentioned. The impact on Tecumseh size, which is really important. Does Tecumseh end up at overcapacity? Will there be a need for portables? So that 2 is kind of a less great option than 3. But
the viability of the French immersion program is better for Central in option 2 versus option 3. Option 1 was sort of the winningest option. A couple of things there is the English in 1 and 3, those guys end up getting bused. One really important thing for our group here was that socioeconomical structure being removed specifically from Tecumseh and Tom Thompson, specifically referring to a couple of the areas that are being moved away from Tecumseh, and they're high need areas that do need the support of the other population there. A couple of positives, 1 and 3, they're staying together, which is great, and we like the idea of a French immersion campus. One question that we do have, and this was mentioned on our last call, was that the planning committee does not want to have 2 single track French immersion programs south of the QBW. Why? So is an option.
We don't want to go, sorry, we don't want to have more than 2 FI schools south of the QBW.
And I think that what was said was that we didn't want to have more than one, maybe it was.
I would want to avoid single track.
Okay.
To an extent, it's, in terms of results, it's a mixed bag. Like we're like Pineland, right?
Yeah.
Pineland, okay. There's a lot of pines at the board. Pineland, yeah, as a 2-day, like there were some repercussions, and there's also, I think the challenge is when you start off as a strictly FI school, it's a lot easier, but when we're having to say now, we're making this strictly FI, those in the community that are in K-1, now we have to redirect you to another school. I think that could be very much seen as a challenge, and it wouldn't be taken very well by the community. The difference, and again, I wasn't around for this the Pineland one, but between Pineland and making it as single track, again, like I don't think it was an overly popular decision, but at least what you had is Mohawk Gardens is like it's literally a stone throw away from the school, whereas here I think we have a larger distribution of the schools where it, you know, it's not like you're just going down the street to a different school, like you're really going to a different area within the study area to get there. So that's the concern I have is your K to 1s. If you are creating a single track at Tom Thompson, then what's that doing? And Tom Thompson too has in terms of the size of the French cohort, I think we're in around the 200 mark, Michelle.
Is it 141 for 2025 and 148 for 2026? And the projections are that we're at English communities 250. So we're at a lower proportion, right, of FI within our.
Yeah, you're about 150 right now. Okay, yeah. So
however, we were looking at the numbers, and it does put us at the same percentage of utilization as Pineland currently is.
So where you going? The difference is though, I'll counter you, and I see where you're coming from. It's the size. So because you have such a small school to begin with, the utilization looks good. But where I get concerned is, again, like I'd like to see at least 2 grades per class when it comes to that, or at least having some variability. That size of school at about 150, I think you're going to end up having challenges as an FI school, strictly. You might have challenges in terms of getting the additional supports that you would have, like the number of teachers available for doing extracurricular activities. You're certainly not going to have a VP. I think
Just got this year. Come on, don't give them away.
I don't do staffing. Well, I don't do that part of the staff. So that's the concern I'd have too. Like you don't have as big of a body, so you'd almost have to consolidate a number of FI programs. But then you're kind of eating away from other schools. So this is the challenge we're having with South Burlington, is that we have a number of schools that are underutilized, and we have more capacity than we have students, unfortunately. So we got to be careful that it's not just about the utilization, but it's also that criteria about viability of program. I need a sizable enough population so that you can have a good teacher base, you'll have the resources, and a healthy size. Can I pause you for one? So you have a question?
Not a question, just to add to what you said. Another concern might be with just an FI school. Is the limitations it might put on diversity of learners that are there, and talking about resources that might be available specifically. It's harder for students, and I have children with spec ed backgrounds. And if you want it, children in FI struggle a little bit more to receive those supports. So if you're at a school that has both tracks, it is a positive in my mind that you have both.
And the last thing I had too on that one, and then I'll throw it back to you afterwards. Those that choose, because we do have attrition in the FI program. And so if a student decides that the FI is no longer for them throughout their career, at least if you get out of the FI program, your backstop is, especially if you're in the community, you're going to just go into the English track program. Not 100% sure if you're out of area technically at the English track, you're just going to go back to your own school or not. Like, I think it depends on capacity issues too. But usually if they can accommodate it, they'll try. You might just lose busing, but there's that too. So then you're losing that option, and it's a challenge. So there's a lot of benefits to single tracks, I'll say, but there's a few counters as well, especially when you're implementing it after the fact, and especially when we don't have a large number of students that can guarantee that we'll have enough in the program. So it's a very delicate balancing act on that front. But no, a great point, great question to bring up again. Appreciate that.
That was it.
Oh, that was it?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, good. Then that worked out.
Just like,
Sorry.
Didn't know that you were waiting for me.
I was just thinking.
Happens. Okay. All right, so we're nearing the end, so I do appreciate all that. Get to this. I'm trying to find the mouse here. I got one last Mentimeter just to rate the final options. You know what, let's do that. I'll do that after I speak to the. There we go. Let's do this real quick. So, I think you can go at your own pace. So essentially, here's the criteria that we talked about tonight. Based on the options, scale 1 to 5, how you feel about those. What this will do, which is nice, it'll average out all of your answers to each one of the criteria, how well it meets it, and then it'll give us kind of a rating. So I'm going to leave this open. You can do it tonight as I kind of close out, and then we'll take the results and we can post them later, or we can get back to it after I'm finished my spiel about next steps for the
Are you
next
gonna
meeting.
put the QR code back up?
Is it not up? Oh, another way you can do it too is you can go to menti.com,
Oh, okay.
and then you can use this code as well. Thank you, Bill. That's why you need multiple screens. I put the Menti in. What was the QR code? This was that was the first one. I did another one, I thought.
There was another one, right, but it linked all back to the initial one, so I got rid of it.
Sorry, say that again.
It linked back to the original one, so I thought it was a duplicate, so I got rid of it.
All right, so if you go to menti.com, let's edit that out of the video. If you go to menti.com and just use the code 46645175, and then you fill it out there. Apologies. All right, so it'll be the same 3 questions for options 1, 2, 3. Everybody got it?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. I'll get back to the presentation. We'll come back to this afterwards. I could have swore I did the slide today, but I must have not hit okay. Where's that? There you go, slideshow. All right, so what's next? So again, we talked about some changes tonight. You've got the materials taken home with you. Great reading material before bed. Sleep like a log. Come back with any additional options or iterations you'd like to see. Either email us directly or Michelle or the general inbox. If you do direct, probably easier so it doesn't get fixed. And then what I would say is use the study area map that we have. And usually we talked about this last meeting, but if you want to see an option, you can say, well, if you combine zones 1, 2, 3, 4 for central, direct us that way. Be cognizant of both English and French when you're doing it. Doesn't need to be perfect. And if we have any follow-up, we'll follow up with you and just have a chat about it. Next meeting, oh, wrong button.
So it's possible to say, like, just based on Chris's comment, that we could ask to run an option 4 that is French immersion only at Tom Thompson to see the impact.
Yeah, throw it over and then we can have a look at it.
Because I think that's one of the biggest questions we have of all the French immersion and the English parents too, is because it's not on the table, it's kind of like we have to think in our mind what all the pros and cons are. And I feel like if people could see it the way it's been presented for the other options.
Well, that's what I'm offering.
Yeah.
So if you want to see it,
yeah,
just flip that over. So
Okay.
that's an option. You want that single track. I will show it to you. I'm
Yeah.
letting you know in advance, like what my thoughts are. I'll just tell you what I think. Whether
And
you
I'm
want
not
to or
saying it
not.
would go, but I
let's
think
put it
parents
on.
would like to see it presented as an option. And if it's clear that it's not the best option, but it's presented the way the others are, because I think that's the biggest.
Or if it's even a feasible option.
Yes, like maybe
Or-
it shows that it's not feasible, or
If
it
it's not feasible,
shows.
then we'd understand and we wouldn't have in the back of your mind thinking, how come this isn't being looked at?
Oh, absolutely. And that's on the table. Let me be clear. That is on the table. So that's what I want to see, because I do not want the end of this process to just be 3 different options. Because the public will then think, well, then it was a done deal, which it's not. Like we need to look at these different perspectives, put them on paper. And just because I'm mentioning it, so don't use that as a detractor. It's just, I'm letting you know what I think, but I want to see it too. So throw it over, we'll build it.
Okay.
And we'll go through the motions. Okay. Michelle's yelling at me right now, but yes.
How do we get that to? Do we email?
Just email. Yeah. Just email Michelle and I or the general inbox. And like I said, just use the zones as kind of your guide as to what you'd like to see combined, or if you have a general directive, like you said, with it, Tom Thompson's single track FI, just clarify, like, are you building off of an existing option, or do you just want to see it like, if that's the only thing we do? While we're on the subject, do we want to see just one single track school and we send everybody to Pineland?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that one too. Why not? One in Rome. Wish it was Rome, but it's not. Next meeting, we're going to talk about the other options we're going to develop. I want to see more. We're going to have a similar conversation. I think right now we have it virtually for February 19th. Like I said, we're skipping the next week because we're going to need some time to build this. We're having some staffing issues in my department. And then we'll go from there. We'll talk some more. And then we still have some time before the public meeting. So yes, if there's a preference to still have it in person because you like this format, let us know. I think it's easier for discussion purposes. Happy to do it again. Otherwise, it could be virtual. We're good either way. Amy.
I don't know if you said it or not because it's not on the slide. Are you thinking this goes to trustees for information in May and a vote in June?
Yes, it's in the earlier slide in the.
Okay.
I think it's in the other presentation. But yeah, we're trying to get this done by June.
That's what I was hoping for. Thank you.
Yeah.
So are you confirming that next Thursdays is no longer happening?
That's correct.
Okay,
We're not
and
doing
then
next Thursday.
We're here in person.
It's scheduled for virtual, right? But this is a challenging one. So if you guys are good, I'm good either way. You can do it virtually, you can do it in person. Robbie?
I'll just, a couple of reps who are not here tonight emailed and said they would have been able to participate if there was a virtual option and would like that. But I'm just bringing that voice that wasn't.
Hybrid stuff. So it's like, as you can see, like it gets challenging. So it's because what we do virtually, we do the same thing here, except we break you out in the virtual rooms. So it's the same concept. It's so as long as you got your papers, we'll just have to know in advance. So if I gotta send you guys printouts, I can send you guys printouts. So maybe just let us know by the end of the week. We'll take a consensus and go from there. All right. All right. So we'll also share the results of this, which are the results. So it looks like, yeah, this clear winner with option one being kind of the, I think it's a good starting point, a good basis to go with. So it's looking good. So, all right. Well, I think what this tells us is the those 1s out of 5s. I think it's what telling us that we're a little lukewarm or cold to come see options. So I heard that loud and clear. So we'll focus on Central, look at some alternative options and go from there. Again, sorry I talked so much tonight, but thank you for all your participation, council, and thoughts on this. Have a great evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Again, if you need options, you let us know. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.